there, guys. My name's Brian, the host of the one and only OH.Report video podcast, and we are back at better than ever with another great week of chitter chatter about all the latest sports happenings right here in our own backyard of North Central Ohio and beyond. We are intergalactic now, but it's not just me. Oh no, the Motley Crew is back with me yet again, including this gentleman right here over to my left, Travis Big League Berardi. Part chipmunk, part human. Look at those cheeks. It's amazing how much you can stuff with those at any given time. It never gets old for me. All right, and then over here to my right, how about half man, half amazing, Garrett, G-Man, Parlette, a cat so money he'll make your whole bankroll go to sleep in about one night.
It's a fact.
And then one more down, we have the always hungry, never satisfied Storm Blunchley, who actually just flew for the first time in his entire adult life. He's 21 years old, folks. We just went to Boston. You had only seen what that looked like in movies. How similar was it from the big screen to your actual life, Storm?
It was honestly way more exciting. It was pretty crazy to fly and be there, and just how little time it took to actually get there was absolutely wild. So it was something I'll never forget. So it was pretty sweet.
And a fun fact, me and Storm actually went to Fenway Park, and we tried on every single hat in the store. His head is so big, none of them fit. That is an actual identified fact. All right, guys. Well, fall practice officially got underway yesterday for fall high school sports right here in the great state of Ohio. Some teams even kicked off practice at midnight to get a little bit of a head start and get ahead of the curve, if you will. So it got me kind of turning my little dumb nails up here inside of my brain about some of my favorite memories from back in 2 days. We'll get to story time with me here in a second, but G, we're going to go with you first. Former homecoming king, big man on campus out there at Crestview. Fill us in. What's one of your favorite 2-a-day stories?
Man, I got so many memories back from football 2-a-days, but of course, my favorite time was the break in between. You got to eat the lunch and all that, but 2-a-days are not only about learning about football, but you guys really become a brotherhood, man. You get together, and there's so much fun, and you go out afterwards. We go to Sage Bates' house. He had a pool, and we would play football after our 2-days. So we really wouldn't wrap up until about 11 o'clock, and we had some serious battles in that pool. I mean, Caden Hill was drowning people underwater, and you really couldn't. That guy was so strong. I honestly thought I was going to die, be completely serious. But, yeah, man, 2-days are seriously a lot of fun, and I'm sure that they're dreading going to them, but I know here in a few years they're going to really like the memories that they get from it.
No question about it. Storm, you went to the same exact high school as G-Man. Didn't play football, but I understand that you still have some stories that stick out from this time of year.
Yeah, there's always some stories that Garrett likes to share. I won't mention any names, but there was one kid in particular who wasn't the brightest crayon in the box, so it was always a lot of fun to kind of, listen to what he had to say or listen how he tried to rally the troops and, try to get people hyped, but it really never ever worked. So that's probably my story from G-Man that I'd like to share.
And then nobody has more legendary high school stories than this guy over here to my left, the West Virginia All-American, Travis Berardi. I can't even imagine where this story is going to go. Take us down memory lane, sir.
Actually, my senior year, we're going through 2-a-days, and one of our main linebackers, he doesn't show up to practice. Something happened where he pretty much got suspended. But Coach, he's a big movie fan, so you've seen the movie Coach Carter.
Great movie.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
The players come around in the end and they do the guy's guts. They do the push-ups and everything for him so he can play again. Well, that's what he kind of set that up to it, and us seniors, we kind of figured out what was going on. So it was kind of a big team-building thing. So the last day, he said, well, you can't. You're going to be suspended because you can't get this done. So we all stand up and we say, well, you know what, we'll go for him. And then the cool thing was that the underclassmen didn't know about the whole plan, and they started stepping up too. And that was a big, coming together moment. So It was kind of like a movie moment. So, just like right out of Coach Carter.
And for me, we had a brand new coach my senior year of football and also trying to build that team camaraderie. So what he made us do for the first week of 2-a-days is we all had to sleep together in the gym. It was a lot stinky, I'm not going to lie. The shower facilities couldn't really keep up with us either. But one in particular night, I lived pretty close to the high school. I managed to go home and I brought some Sock'em Bop'ems, a couple of different pair of them. And about 2 a.m., some of the younger kids started asking some questions. They wanted to try me, wanted to try a couple of other guys. And so we got an underground boxing league going that night. a lot of headaches, a lot of bruised up egos, and certainly some bloody noses and such. And then the next day, I think people were more sore because of the boxing than the actual football. Coach Hafey, if you're watching, that's why we were a little bit slow that one morning, and we all had the cuts and bruises and the blood coming out of our noses. It wasn't actually from some of your drills. We were just doing a little bit of fighting underground at 2 a.m.
You know, number one rule about Fight Club.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
Oh, and I just broke it. What am I doing? Sorry, anybody who just watched, I just lost my total street cred. All right, speaking of a guy that knows a thing or two about high school football two-a-days, let's go ahead and welcome in on the line, joining us right now, Wynford head coach Gabe Helbert is joining us. And, Coach, I seen – hey, there – yeah, you're right. What am I talking about? Let's get a round of applause for this guy. You were a pretty big deal back in your day. I know that you were a star football standout at the high school of Crestline. I've seen your picture up there on the wall. You got any two-a-day stories that you can share with us?
Man, first of all, you made me blush. I don't know if anyone's ever said I was a star standout. Two-a-days were a fantastic time. Really for me, it went back to my dad going to 2 days at Malabar High School, old Malabar High School, and then Mansfield Senior, and being part of that. But I tell you, we never had an underground fight club. There was none of that. We kind of did the standard, but loved the football aspect of it. My best memory, back in my day, you had to condition to get ready for the football season during 2 days, and so we did a lot of time spent on that cinder track at Crestline High School with Coach DePietro. So I don't know if it was a fun time, but it's probably my fondest memory.
That's definitely what stands out to you. And you mentioned two-a-days. I know with all the regulations and the rule changes and just trying to be more in tune with the athletes and taking care of them, is that still a thing? Are you guys at Wynford this year? Are you implementing 2 practices in the same day?
No, we haven't done 2 practices in the same day probably in, 3 or 4 years now. We try to be as efficient as possible. We don't want to dominate the kids' time. We really don't want to dominate our coaching staff's time. So we do the one big practice. We'll be out there for 3 hours and 15 minutes, maybe 4 hours if we're in the film room or in the weight room or something like that. So it's a longer practice than our standard in season, but we try not to do the long break in between the standard old school 2-a-day.
And the standard out there in Wynford, I would say second to none here in the area. It's hard to believe that it's going to be your 10th year with the program already. And I still remember when you took over, you were coming off of 5 straight perfect regular seasons. So the expectation, the bar, the standard, it's been way up here since day one. What can you tell me about keeping that tradition of excellence intact? And what does it take to have a culture like you guys have out there wearing that Royal across your chest?
It's hard to believe it's been 10 years and 18 years at Wynford overall. Brian, I remember you coming over to our weight room my first year as a head coach, and it was kind of, it was a daunting task, I guess, trying to fill in for Coach Moyer and what we'd done in the past. But, our expectation is we're going to maintain that standard. We expect our kids to compete at a high level, and we want to compete for championships every single year. And, that's going to start for us in the off season. We live 4 days a week starting in January, and, our kids invest a tremendous amount of time to be great. And I think we believe in that adage of chopping wood and carrying water from that book, where you kind of fall in love with the process of being great, and that's really what we try to instill in our kids.
Yeah, you've racked up a ton of N10 titles already during your time. I think only twice or maybe even once that you guys didn't win it. All winning seasons for you too, 6 playoff berths. How do you self-analyze the job that you are doing as a coach, though? What does success look like to you in the job that you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with all the winning that we've been fortunate enough to be a part of, I don't know that it was ever about winning. With Coach Moyer, there was never a mention of winning these games in a row or the streak or, the fact that we won a lot of regular season games. It was all about the process of being great. I think the biggest thing for me to analyze, am I doing my job as a coach, and do our kids leave happy and healthy? We want our kids to leave happy and healthy and feel great about themselves. And, there's going to be days when we challenge our kids and they're probably not going to be happy with us. But our ultimate goal is that kids are happy and healthy in our program and feel great about themselves.
Well, I got one guy to my right who's always happy, one guy to my left who's trying to get healthy. I see he walking in with the shakes every single day, trying to get a little bit more fit. And Travis got a question for you. Go ahead, Trav.
Coach, a week and a half ago, I was out at one of your final summer sessions. I asked you I gave you this compliment. I guess you said it was a compliment. You guys are like the Lucas of Crawford County. You're constantly competing for a playoff spot. You're constantly in those playoffs, not only at the varsity level, but, junior high, middle school, freshman, JV football. What do you instill with those players just to continue the winning ways when you have to retool and rebuild?
It really all starts with a consistent work ethic. I mean, anything that you are going to accomplish in life is going to require a consistent day in and day out work ethic where you believe that what you're doing is for the betterment of everybody and that you're a vital piece of everything we do. You mentioned junior high and freshman and JV, and we think all those kids are extremely important. That's why we try to do the same thing at the lower levels, and we try to put a tremendous amount of emphasis in our freshmen and our JV, and we split our kids from young to old, so we don't have one group that's getting no reps. I mean, our old kids get the same exact amount of reps as our young kids, and we are trying to build a consistent work ethic where we have the ability to have success year in and year out.
Yeah, you're talking about kind of some of the vital pieces and parts. Obviously, you lost one last year. G-Man here, got a question for you about how you're going to move on without one of your stars.
Coach, obviously losing Dustin Brady was a big piece. He was a great player, but not only, he was also a great leader. What's it going to take to be able to replace him at such a high level?
Another fantastic question. First of all, I got to give you a shout out to the Caden Hill mention. I love Caden Hill. That's my guy. I had Caden as a student at Pioneer Career and Technology Center. It's crazy you brought his name up. He was just texting me right before you had mentioned his name about their practice getting ready to start. So love Caden. But back to your question, to replace Dustin, you don't replace a kid like that who's done the body of work that he has. But we feel really comfortable with Kobe Allen. He's kind of waited his turn, going to be a senior this year, and he's a kid with a lot of talent. He just has to now kind of grasp that opportunity.
Obviously, there's got to be a lot to always maintaining those lofty expectations, but there's also got to be some downtime too, Coach. Tell me, what does Gabe Helbert do to unwind, relax? What does a nice, cool relaxation day period look like to you?
Well, I've never wanted football to define who I am and what I am. I think I have tremendous amount of interests and hobbies. My wife would say the same. It starts with my family, my kids. And from there, just all outdoor activities. Love training, love weightlifting, love basketball, outdoors, camping, hiking, bushcraft. I have a million hobbies, man.
That's a good thing. Hey, maybe we can see you out.
I have a million.
Maybe get a little 2-on-2 going here soon.
Hey, anytime. I fancy myself as a bad basketball player that loves basketball.
I think all of us are kind of fall into that category ourselves, Coach. Well, hey, we've taken up way too much of your time, but before we let you go here, we've all been watching the Summer Olympics here over the last week, and we've been daydreaming about how much fun it would be to compete on that big stage. So tell me, of the Summer Games, what looks like the competition that you would most like to compete in?
It's got to be the 100-meter dash. I can't imagine what it must feel like to be able to move like that and just the power, the output, the explosiveness. Man, I would love to feel what that is like to run a 800 meter would be, wow, that'd be something.
I think I did it in a cool 14 seconds back when I was in high school, and that was my best, and I was darn proud of it, Coach. Well, hey, man, thanks so much for joining us, and best of luck to you this season. We're trying to get you on the OH Report for at least all your home games this year, so we're trying to get in touch with Royal Nation, bro.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Brian, and everybody. You guys do a fantastic job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, Gabe Helbert, 10th year head coach of the Wynford Royals. And guys, just like I asked him, the Olympics been going down. I've been watching, I've been daydreaming like, oh, what would it be like to be that person? Who was it for you, Garrett? Who do you try to emulate in your brain about who you would like to compete as?
I would love to do one of the long distance running events. I've always wanted to be able to run and just enjoy it. But, when I get on run, it's just I'm dreading it. I'm dreading it. I don't want to do it, but, they just get up and go, man, and they run miles for fun. I shout out to Ross Kuhn. He's been running. Basically, at every practice I go to, Crestview, he is there, regardless of wherever they're at, he is running. for fun. And I'm like, how? Like, you just do that for fun? So I definitely would pick one of the endurance challenges if I had to pick one of the Olympic challenges.
Storm, we've seen you get out and run doing the gauntlet, and that didn't exactly end as smooth as maybe some of these Olympians. What to you stands out, though? What would you like to try?
Definitely basketball guy. It'd have to be basketball. Just to be a part of Team USA, that elite club. I know this year it's been kind of shaky, but in years prior, there have been some incredible players on that team. So just be a part even of that team, even if I rode the bench the whole time, the whole tournament, just to be a part of it and kind of see what it's like behind the scenes, I think that would be awesome.
Nobody on our staff has been watching more Olympics than this guy to my left, though. It seems like 24/7 nonstop. He didn't sleep last night. That's not even a lie, folks, because he was up late watching all the Olympic stuff. You're just going to pick one, though, Travis.
I know. I'm kind of agitated, though. I got up at 4 a.m. to watch USA Canada, and they lose on a very bad call, and then the baseball team gets walked off. But not just that. I would like to be in water polo. I'd like to be the water polo goalie. Because just the stamina and the strength you need, you have to tread water the whole time. You can't touch the ground in 10 or 20-minute halves. You have to be able to, even though you're not touching the ground, you have to be able to get elevated up when the ball is thrown at you. I just think that'd be quite the sport to play.
And for me, our camera person's been shaking her head nonstop. She's not agreeing with that, Travis. I got to go with the gymnast, man. When you look at what some of these boys can do, they're so well-versed. They have to do like 4 different events, at least the good ones do. They spring up like 10 feet into the sky just with their legs. I don't know how they do it. It's like jumping over a moving car or a human being. They can twist like a human licorice. It just looks outstanding the way that these guys can move. It's almost unhuman. I don't know how they do it. I can't even do a front flip on a trampoline. I can barely do a butt bounce. So to understand what that would feel like to be one of those type of people, I think would be really awesome. I can probably tread water right now and at least throw a ball. Not good, but never mind. The camera person saying I can't swim at all. And she's right. Let's move on.
Don't hate it until you try it. That's all I'm saying.
All right, outside of the Olympics, still big sporting events are going down, including the CONCACAF Gold Cup, where the U.S. men beat Mexico yesterday to win gold. So, Travis, since you're our resident expert here for the red, white, and blue, does this mean that we're back, baby?
Yes, I think it is. U.S. soccer, they missed the last 3 Olympics. They missed the World Cup in 2018. You always see that clip. What are we doing?
What are we doing? What's the point?
They were really just down in the dumps after missing the World Cup. They lost to Puerto Rico. They lost to Trinidad and Tobago that year, and it thought like U.S. wasn't coming back. They rebuilt. They played in the first ever CONCACAF Nations Cup in June. They defeated Mexico in extra time 2-1. That got some momentum, and that wasn't even their A squad. That was their B squad. Then they bring their C squad to the Gold Cup against Mexico, and they win 1-0 last night in extra time. So not even the best players on the U.S. are out there. Kind of like the G-Man and Storm of the U.S. soccer's right out there playing right now, but they're still able to dominate. So when you get those best guys together for qualifying for the World Cup, which comes in September, they play Canada in the first match, I think, on September 8th. You get those in there. You get the A squad and some of those other guys that are excelling at the Nations Cup and the Gold Cup. They're going to be a force to reckon with, and they're going to be back because we are back.
All right, you heard it here first, guys. And speaking of the A squad, we've got a visitor here in the house. Let's go ahead and bring this man in. Let's fire up his microphone. Probably only at about half level. He's a little bit loud. But if you can't tell already from this sexy side profile, he is a star color commentator for WMAN football and, of course, the star of the Saturday Pigskin right here on the OH.Report. Let's make way for the always chatty, full of facts, Erik Will. Hey, thanks for joining us, bro.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Let's go.
Storm, G-Man, Travis, how you doing? Obviously, Captain Brian.
All hanging out here, and I know that you don't pay that much attention to soccer as a whole, at least, Team USA and stuff, but you got a couple of daughters, or at least one that's starting to compete. How much has your vernacular and your just overall knowledge of the beautiful game evolved?
Well, here's what I've learned. I've learned that I don't know much, so I just get to be the parent that supports. But I do like soccer. She's only in 3rd grade, so I'm learning as I go. Our Officer Swisher, our resource officer there at Shelby, he's our head girls coach, doing a phenomenal job building that program. And then my oldest daughter runs cross country. So there's a whole bunch of things going on that I don't know about where I get to just be support and then make up terminology that may or may not tie into that sport. But I do know mental toughness, so we talk about that a lot around the wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's kind of me with volleyball. I'm just making up words
Right.
as I go, but sometimes I feel like they fit and stick. One thing that obviously you know about, and that's coaching a football program and taking them to big heights. You had some great runs with the Shelby Whippets. So tell me about this time of year, Erik. You just got 3 weeks. You get your first practice, but you got to regiment it over the next couple of weeks to get geared up for week number 1 when the Friday night lights really come on. What does that process look like for a head coach?
Well, I'll tell you what, by this time, most coaches have most of their offensive scheme in as far as what they're doing for the year. Those things were done in June and the first part of July. Now you're getting back into, you're putting pads on, so now you're getting back into fine-tuning detail. So each stage you got to kind of take a step back because now we threw the shoulder pads on. It's not just the helmets. And then we got to get back into hand placement, hips, feet, those types of things. Get back on your route tree, catch balls with pads on. Now you're trying to get best on best as much as possible. Because this Friday, this is different. What is it? 2 weeks from this Friday is the first game.
Right.
So, it's in hyper speed right now. So they've got a scrimmage this week. They've got a scrimmage next week, all across the area, all across the state. So they probably use those days that were kind of unrestricted this year, and they were probably getting all that stuff put in really early. The 7-on-7s are always going. The lineman challenges are always going. So I'm sure right now it's getting back to detail and fine-tuning and getting that scheme nailed down and ready to go for week 1.
Yeah, you mentioned the additional summer practices. That's something that Travis is interested to get your perspective on.
Yeah, going back to the 2016-2017 teams that you had, Shell, two of the best teams in Richland County history.
Right.
If you had that summer where no restrictions, what would you have been able to do with that team with that extra preparation?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what, Travis, I don't know how much more we would have done because I think sometimes less is more. I know a lot of teams now, I'd have been interested to talk to Coach Helbert. I was unable to hear his response as far as two-a-days. I know a lot of coaches are even shying away from two-a-days now. If your product, if your players aren't ready to go, the capital is the kids. And if they're not ready to go, if you have tweaks, muscle issues, any type of injury from banging each other in practice, shame on you as a coach in all seriousness. If you're not ready to go week 1, that's an issue. So I don't know how much more we would actually do because I do believe in May and June being big-time training seasons, running, jumping, competing, doing all of those types of things, lifting weights, getting your body ready to go for a 10-week grind, and in those cases, 13, 14, 15 weeks. You also got to let the kids enjoy the summer as well. We had kids that were playing baseball half the summer, basketball half the summer, so we were sharing them. And I didn't want to give them overload. I was more interested in when we were there, let's get quality work done and then get them out.
Yeah, Travis shined some light a little bit on those 2 great teams that you had at Shelby, and that's what a lot of fans will remember is the banner years. But then you also had a couple that weren't so great in terms of the wins and losses. What does a casual fan maybe not understand about a program like Coach Helbert's at Wynford, like Lucas and what they got going with Spittler, Ashland for the run that they've had, and just keeping the sustained success?
Yeah, generally speaking, a coach comes in one of 3 ways. Either a legend retires, or even potentially the second part of that would be move on. Maybe a great coach moves on to maybe take what's at least perceived to be a better job or a bigger job or a better opportunity. Maybe things weren't going well, so they're trying to replace you to get momentum going, or you have someone who was a great coach there a long time and they retire. 2 of those 3 generally aren't very good. You're walking into a situation where you're kind of having to reshuffle the deck and figure out what you have and how you're going to fix it. To me, it comes down to 3 things. This is what we build our tent poles on, and I think that it transcends every sport. You can use this as a template for anything, and it's culture, talent, scheme. Culture, talent, scheme. Culture's number 1. That's got to be implemented. That's got to be the foundation of your program. Your talent's going to go up and down. You're going to have really good years. You're going to have a Brennan Armstrong. And then sometimes you're not going to have. Most time you won't have a Brennan Armstrong. But what's the culture of your program? That's sustainable no matter who comes in and no matter what it looks like. The second part of that is the scheme. The talent. When you have great talent, when I just have guys that are better than your guys, that makes us all look good. And then the second part of that is the last part of that, phase 3. When you get into the scheme has to match the talent.
Sure.
So an example, when you have a team that struggles where you're like, man, there's a lot of dudes out there running around that can play ball. Okay, there's a culture issue. which leads into the mental part of it, and then the brotherhood and all those things that you guys were talking about when you were growing up and playing two-a-days, right? I mean, that's the culture part of it. You want to play next to the guy, right? You love your coaches. You love the guys you're playing with. That's when greatness happens. And then you turn around and you're like, okay, well, we got some dudes running around the field. So schematically, if we not put these guys in the right place to be successful, do we need to reshuffle? Do we need to analyze who's playing what, when, where, and why, and then where are deficiencies? So, and then readjust accordingly, because each year you're going to have to tweak it. This is high school. We're not recruiting a certain type of kid at the high school level. At least most of us don't. You know, especially when you're coaching around this area, you're getting what, generally speaking, you were probably next to the same kid in your yearbook all the way through up until you played. That's how it is in a place like Clear Fork and Ontario and Lexington and Shelby and Mansfield. So you've got to readjust what you're doing when you're like, man, we got a kid coming up. He's not a great thrower. He's a great athlete. The ball's got to be in his hands a bunch, so we need to reshuffle and now get more into the running scheme from the position of our quarterback. Maybe you got a kid that, you know, he's kind of a statue, but a live arm. Well, then you got to adjust your offense for that live arm and get the athletes the ball and get the ball into your quarterback's hands, but get it out into space into where the athletes can make plays.
And to go off of that, what I asked Coach Helbert too, how important is it to have the middle school, grade school, the freshman JV teams? How important is it to have them on the same page, maybe having the same schemes defensively, same plays offensively, just so they're on track when they get to the top level?
Yeah, I think it's important. The middle school is going to have their wrinkles offensively and defensively. The culture is to me, from Pee Wee or at least 7th grade on up. This is what we do, and here's how we do it. I think that's extremely important. Once again, you can see, you know, young men, young women, whatever sport it is coming up, where you have to adjust what you're doing and how you're doing it to specifically mold that with the talent of that group. So an example, this is from Shelby. In 2013, when I arrived in Shelby, I had heard about this kid, Brennan Armstrong. He was going to be in 8th grade. Him and Carter Brooks and Shorty Brooks and Brady Hill and all the offensive line that they had, you know, Hayden Vent and Austin Perry. And Austin Perry, a kid who played for me, is actually coaching with Coach Helbert over at Wynford, which is awesome. Sorry, I love that stuff. So anyways, I could see what these guys were doing, and I could see that they were really, really exceptional. And it wasn't just one kid. It was a group. So they were able to get more in the 8th grade as far as the complexities of your playbook and some of your schemes than maybe what you would do for an average middle school team. Because I will say this, there are certain things that work in middle school. If you got a dominant running back, just give him the ball. Don't outthink yourself just because we're trying to, you know, we run a lot of screens or bubbles or jails, or we try to run these pass concepts. If I got a kid back here that nobody can tackle, let's not get crazy. Go ahead and give that dude the ball and let him do his work. Maybe get your lead and then build on that from because I do know this. You want a lot of kids playing, but this idea that, you know, well, you're having fun. You know, we're just being out here. We're having fun, right? We're just having fun, guys. I've never had fun losing at any level. Coaching, playing, I don't care what it was. I always knew the scoreboard, even when you were in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and, you know, they didn't keep score. I got in the car with my parents. I could tell my dad exactly what the score was, even though they weren't keeping it. So you want to make sure that you're cultivating a culture where you're competing to win, but you're also developing talent and making sure you're getting dudes the ball that can make plays.
Well, I'm glad you brought up games where you don't really keep score and it doesn't necessarily matter per se. And then you talked about the great offensive line you had for a little while, and then that real stud that's going to be starting at Virginia again this year, Brennan Armstrong. Well, there was one time, Coach, where you didn't protect him so good and he was flat on his back. Garrett, would you please remind him?
Oh, wow. Well, Coach Will, I don't know if you remember this, but it was a Shelby-Lucas Crestview scrimmage.
Oh, yeah.
It was at Crestview.
Yeah, that was good. Those were good times. Those were great scrimmages.
Yeah, I believe that was my junior year, and I didn't play high school football until I was a junior.
Right.
And I was like the 3rd string D tackle, and I was dominating on JV. Coach Craig was, hey, nobody can block him. So they sent me to varsity, and I was like, oh, gosh, man, like I'm so scared.
Right. Make a name for yourself, man.
Yeah, and I used to go to school with Heath and Nick.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I went up against
both
them.
of them. Well, Heath's not, but Nick's still at Ashland.
Yeah. So I don't know what the play was. I think it was a read option. I wasn't blocked.
Right.
So I was like, he's giving it to the running back. He's got to. And Brennan comes, and I get him with a ankle tackle, and I roll over on him.
Right.
And I was so excited. I swore I was going D1 after that day.
Right.
I went home. I posted that
Right.
video on my Instagram, my social
Hey,
media.
somebody's got to tackle it, man.
Yeah, I know, man. But
I don't know what the play was. I'd like to see it because you might have been the read. Maybe you just
that's
made
what I
it
was
up with play.
thinking.
Or Brendan just didn't respect your game.
Yeah.
He was thinking there's no way this
Right.
tackle.
Exactly. That's
So
what
you
it is.
showed him.
This
I like
clown?
it.
Yeah, it had to have been because
Right.
I did not look like the football player.
Right.
that
And
year
that's
either.
and Brian, that's actually bringing up a great point. When you have an elite player, and they are around you. You have a Cade Stover. You have one of the 18 grosses that are all unbelievable. They're so good at what they do that sometimes they trust their athletic ability over doing maybe the right football thing, if that makes sense. So as a coach, you've got to continue to coach that because if you want, you're eventually going to get to somebody that's going to be able to make that play. So when you're using a quarterback, an example, if I'm reading him and he was telling me to give it, but I kept it and scored a touchdown, everybody up in the stands are going nuts, right? Oh, man, what a play. That kid's unbelievable. He is, but he's playing against, quite frankly, lesser talent.
Let's
But
go.
Not on
Talking
that
about
day. Not on that day. So, hey, you know what? You gave me coachable film. I
There we go.
appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right, Coach. Well, obviously, you gave up the whistle a couple of seasons ago,
Right.
and you're now calling games with iHeartRadio, WMAN, and we're blessed to be partnering with you guys again this year.
Yeah.
You're going to be on the
Yeah.
OH.Report broadcast, so looking forward to that. Tell me about getting prepped for a game, though, when you're breaking down the film and you're
Yeah.
getting ready for what you're going to be talking about during the broadcast versus when you look at it as a coach. How much different is that film and that mental process?
When you're looking at film from a coaching standpoint, number one, there's two ways of doing this. You have to evaluate yourself. So I would go through, and I'm probably going to watch it several times, and not only several times, but so one play I'm probably watching maybe even 11 times because I'm going to watch each position on the field. Even if it's a receiver running off, I want to see, did he get his butt off the line of scrimmage? Is he moving? Is there something? Because when you're in the secondary, what are you doing? You're teaching your guys, he's coming off the line different from a pass from a run. Those are little things that are difference between a 5 and 7 yard run and a 30-yard or a 50-yard touchdown because are we going to be able to run that guy off or get engaged? Just that type of detail. I mean, I would sit there with the little horse collar and just watch steps and movement, hand placement. As an announcer, I'm watching it more for scheme, who's playing well, who are kind of the hidden gems on each team. There is always – this has been the history of football. There's always one or two guys on every team that disappoint you a little bit sometimes, and there's always one or two guys where you're like, I didn't see that kid coming. That kid's an absolute stud. I've never talked to a coach or been a part of a staff that didn't happen. So, I want to see are the stats telling me the story. Like here's a perfect basketball analogy. When Shelby played Lima Shawnee in basketball, I watched the Mingus kid was averaging 30-some points a game, Mr. Ohio candidate. Well, then when I watched and realized half of his points are kind of coming off cherry picks. And I'm not blasting, but that is a different part of that story than the grind out 32 points that I thought he was getting. And I'll say this, I was actually impressed because he did work well around the hoop because it wasn't coming from the three-point arc as well.
Sure.
So the film has to, it's not just the stats. We've got to use analytics, but I want to look at, does the play match the stats and does it tell the story? So I'm doing a lot of that as well and just appreciating football. I love high school football. High school football is so pure. I actually think now and I have a problem with it, but college going to the NIL and all that stuff, and you're starting to see this Pangea of super conferences. I think it's going to happen.
Sure.
Is high school football really the last true, sacred, pure spot of football? It might be, and I enjoy watching it.
Well, you're obviously plugged in here in this area, and we know who some of the top flight teams, or at least we think in our general area, are going to be. But give us some off-the-radar squads that you have a gut feeling might be able to surprise, jump up, and be some underdogs.
Well, I'll tell you, the first one I'm going to go with, I think, is Clear Fork. And I know that doesn't seem like a stretch, but I would say even Dave Carroll, where his standard is with that program, because they had won a couple of MOAC titles. And then last year, Shelby got a couple. They've won the last two. But I love that sophomore class. Clear Fork has an amazing sophomore class. Those kids are dialed in. I think they're coachable. I've been hearing about them for a few years while I was able to watch a little bit last year. And I don't know if they're going to be good enough to win a league title this year, but they're going to cut their teeth, and they're going to surprise a whole bunch of teams in this area. And then I also like Taylor Gerhardt going to Lexington is
Let's
huge.
go.
Yep.
Now, Coach Gerhardt, here's what he's going to do in Lexington. This is the culture part of this. That's why I say this is at the top. He's going to implement a mindset in a no excuse. Urban Meyer called it BCD, no blame, complain, defend. You're going to own everything you do, every single practice, and he is a guy that's not going to let one hand placement go wrong. Everything in the program is going to be accounted for from the top down. His defenses are always elite. Now, they had Cade Stover. I get it, but that 3-3 stack's nasty. I think they're going to a 4-2-5, which I like better without Cade Stover to get, so that way you're clearly clearly eating up those 8 run gaps. Because I think you have to stop the run. I know everybody's throwing the ball, but I still believe in stopping the run. And I think Taylor Gerhardt's that good. I think he'll have him ready to go. I like the Poly kid at quarterback as well. If they can just get 2 more guys, to be decent athletes around them, I think that they're going to shock some people this year. I think, here's an example. I don't know if they're going to be good enough to beat a Shelby, but if they get out of that game and it's 34-20, you just made a huge jump. And that's the type of stuff I'm expecting to see, those second half adjustments where they actually matter. My first year at Shelby, we were 1-9. Our goal, I'm not joking, I told our kids this. I was very transparent. When you're not very good, let's compete so we can get to halftime, make an adjustment that would actually matter.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think their program's there. I think it's above that. But there are some teams that they play in that OCC. It's a dog conference. I mean, that is a dog. That is a man's conference right there. So if they can get to some of those schools and they're making those halftime adjustments, which I think they will, I think they're going to compete. And I think they might even get one of those shock wins.
Could you say from one of your teams the year Brennan Armstrong went off against Columbian? Was that a type of game that gave you guys the confidence?
Yeah, it's kind of cool because each week you get to see that maturation process of not only the entire team, but the confidence build. And then, sprinkling in those younger guys is huge. There is no substitute for those Friday night lights. Listen, I love every level. Love freshmen, love JV. And those are important parts of building your program, and those have to be cared for significantly. But when you have a sophomore that's playing on a Friday night, even if it's 30 snaps, 20 snaps, no substitute. Got to have them.
All right, Coach Erik Will in the flesh, always dropping that knowledge for you. He can go on for days and days and days, folks. We're just unfortunately out of time with my boy Erik here.
No, appreciate being here with all you guys.
Yeah,
great
looking
time.
forward to seeing you on Friday nights this year,
season.
man.
Getting close.
All right, just one last order of business to get to before we wrap things up today. Storm, you were not too pleased, I believe, with the new Madden ratings that just came out. And the quarterback specifically, tell me about your thoughts, your feelings, and why maybe you're not happy with this list.
I think the top 5 are pretty accurate, but, I really do think Matt Stafford always gets the short end of the stick just because he played with the Lions. I think he deserves to be in the top 10. But, of course, I have a little bit of bias, him being, one of the greatest Lions players probably of all time. So I really think Matt Stafford should have made the list over a couple of these guys, but, that's just how it is.
Number 1, of course, and I don't think anybody's going to have any beef with old Patty Mahomes up there. Tom Brady at number 2. I get the collective culture that Tom Brady brings, but the number 2 top-rated quarterback, I don't know about that, G.
No, that ain't it. And I don't know how Aaron Rodgers is only 96. He was an MVP last year. He's got to be at least above Brady, 98. I mean, why is Josh Allen an 88?
Yes.
So you're telling me he's on this? He's one. Ryan Tannehill's 1 overall less than Josh Allen. They're even comparable. Like, is that even a question at this point? Josh Allen. I mean, I personally think Josh Allen's better than Lamar Jackson, but that's just my opinion. This list is pretty garbage. I mean, all their ratings are pretty bad. Matt Ryan isn't top 10 quarterback. You make the argument Ryan Tannehill isn't, but I just want to argue with Storm here for a second about the Matt Stafford because I am a Vikings fan. Storm, he had one of the greatest wide receivers ever, and he never won a playoff game. He can't continue. I mean, here recently, since he got to the Rams, they have been building him up as if he has done anything. He's always injured, and he never wins the big games. I know he's with the Lions, which is a fair excuse, but he did have one of the greatest wide receivers ever.
He did have one of the greatest wide receivers ever, but like you said, he's been dealing with the injury bug. But he actually does play through a lot of his injuries But you can't just do it with two people. The lines have never had good protection on the front lines. He's always getting hit. And he just really has never had anyone else really to throw to besides Calvin Johnson. And I know that's a big besides, but, I definitely think LA is going to be a great spot for him. And I really think he's going to kind of prove everyone wrong about, that he's not as good as he is, because I think he's an elite quarterback.
He does at least play through injuries. That I'll appreciate him. I believe Matt Stafford played with a broken neck in some NFL games, so you don't get much tougher than that right there. Travis, when you look at this list, you don't see your boy Big Ben Roethlisberger on there. Does that just leave you at a loss?
I'm fine with that because I think there are 10 better quarterbacks. But Josh Allen, 88, I agree with you, G. An 88, he should be at least a 91, 92. He's a better passer than Jackson, I know he can run the ball a lot better. He can run the ball better than Allen, even though Allen
a lot better
scramble.
than anybody on this list.
But Allen's a better passer. I think 91, 92. Matt Ryan, an 85, he still has it. He needed some wide receivers. I know Julio went through some things last year, always injured. He did have a good receiving core. He did put up yardages. I mean, an 85, at least an 88 for him. And where's Fitzmagic? I think Fitzmagic, an 86 maybe at least. Not up in the 90s, but you got to bring the Fitzmagic in there.
Fitzpatrick?
Fitzmagic.
You think he's top 10?
All right.
I just think
I think that's where we end the show. No Baker Mayfield on the list. No more show for me. He's going to be number one at the whole thing. Super Bowl or bust.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins got a 79, guys. It should have been at least an 85. He's better than Baker.